That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so y'all know we have done a countless number of mock drafts on this channel already for 2022 in your Dynasty startups, but this one's going to be a little bit different. This is a real Dynasty draft that I participated in with my co-owner, JN, Nash's Cashed, whatever you know him as, Nash Talks Texas. So many different names. You see him all the time in our underdog drafts. You see him in our Dynasty mock drafts as well, but he's helping me out with so many of our locals Dynasty leagues, and he's pretty much the co-commissioner slash co-owner with a lot of these. And this was our first startup draft this offseason. Mistakes were definitely made. I think we had a couple wise decisions as well that I will be excited to go through and talk about. But of course, before we get into it, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And please let me know any mistakes you think that I made in this startup draft. I'll be the first person to admit sometimes, we ignored my rankings. Sometimes, we went a little bit wild. And I will say at the time of this recording, we are only 11 rounds through this startup draft. But by the time this video comes out, we'll be completely done, and I'll post the link to see the full draft board over there on Locals. It'll be completely free. It won't be behind a paywall whatsoever. So if you want to see the link to the full startup draft board, I think we're going 34 rounds here. You can find that on Locals. But let me pull up my Dynasty rankings. Let me pull up this Dynasty draft board as well so I can talk about exactly the decisions we made, where maybe I would have gone a little bit differently if I was drafting by myself. And let's start it off with our first round selection, picking at the 111. Now, of course, this is a 12-team Superflex tight end premium format. And when we're at the 111, really, there's only one position I'm going to be looking at here. Now, of course, we are getting boxed out of the truly elite level quarterbacks. We're not able to get the Mahomes, the Allen, the Justin Herbert, as you will never expect one of those quarterbacks to make it to you in this range of the draft. But still, there are some solid options that we can be looking at, saying, well, we can at least plan on building our team around a quarterback like Dak Prescott, a quarterback like Lamar Jackson if he falls. And the quarterback we end up going with, I know not too many people are going to be surprised. We go Trey Lance at the 111. Now, my bold call last offseason was when Trey Lance was going the 4th round of startup draft, saying that he would be a late first round selection this offseason based on his rookie season performance, based on the situation he's stepping into, based on his rushing upside. While no, you're not expecting Trey Lance to go here very often. And I will say, if you pull up my rankings over there on Locals, I don't have Trey Lance as the best ranked player here. I actually have Dak Prescott as the highest ranked quarterback, but sometimes you got to be a good co-manager. Sometimes you got to be a good co-owner. Jayan told me he wanted Trey Lance. I'm not going to argue with it. I don't feel the need to talk in depth on my stance at Trey Lance at this point because we've done that video after video after video for the longest time. Later on, y'all will have a surprise in the startup draft. Now, what's going to be the first interesting discussion point, even though I know everybody's rolling their eyes that we would take Trey Lance in a real money startup over Dak Prescott. Like I said, I have Dak Prescott ranked a tier ahead of Trey Lance, but those are my personal rankings. Of course, JN has his own rankings. So going to the second round, this was my idea, and I will say we did not get the most value you could have in return for this trade. Remember, back in the day, back in 2015, 2016 in Dynasty leagues, if you were to trade back in a startup draft, you are doing so at a premium. People are going to be paying up to get those top end picks. And if we're trading back from, say, the 202 to the 206, we're going to be able to move up in multiple rounds. I'll be able to move up in the 5th from the 511 to the 507. I'll be able to move up in the 7th from the 711 to the 707. But now Dynasty owners, especially players that know what they're doing, they simply do not want to trade up in drafts because 9 times out of 10, if you're trading up, you're making a wrong decision. So at this point, if you're going to trade back and you're within a tier, I think that you almost just have to bite the bullet and you have to say, well, we're not going to quote unquote rip anybody off here. If anything, to trade back, you almost have to lose value at this point. And we are on the clock at the 202 after seeing Dak Prescott go off the board. Of course, if Dak would have fallen, we would have gone Dak Prescott. With hindsight, Gliz did tell us we sniped him on Trey Lance. So if we wouldn't have gone Lance, there's no way we could have come away with Dak and Lance at the turn anyway. But of course, if you were playing in a non-flock startup, you probably could. But we were at the 202, and there were really 5 players that we were looking at and considering. You had Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Mark Andrews, and I know most people are going to be surprised by this, and Breece Hall as well. And I was viewing all those options specifically in a tight end premium format, saying, you know what, they're all about the same for me. I don't even want to have to make the decision. Now, this was before you had the Russell Wilson trade, just to be completely honest. So I was begging people to trade with us. I was saying, hell, if you move up to the 202 and let us move up in the 3rd round, I'm completely fine with that. But no, the best offer we were actually able to get from moving at the beginning of the 2nd round to the middle of the 2nd was trading the 202 for the 206 and then moving up from the 511 to the 507. So yes, of course, I mean, just based on diminishing returns as you go through the startup draft, we lost out on value here. But really, none of those running backs versus Mark Andrews stood out to us. So we end up moving back, and we are on the clock at the 206 after seeing Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris go off the board, and we are asking ourselves, okay, are we going to go Mark Andrews, or are we going to go with a player like Breece Hall? And it really came down to, while looking at the overall ADP, I mean, Breece Hall, the rookie pick 101, way down the list. Mark Andrews sitting at the top, especially in the tight end premium format. And what I'm worried about in a tight end premium league is getting boxed out of the elite options and then being forced to overpay for tight ends in the middle of startup drafts that historically have very high bust rates and are very bad bets in Dynasty. So we end up taking Mark Andrews to pair with Trey Lance. So we start this draft off with Lance, Mark Andrews, and we have a while until we are actually on the clock at the 311. And then we are on the clock at the 311, and I don't want to do it. Y'all know I spend pretty much every video at least 5 minutes talking about how overvalued I perceive Justin Fields to be. But my issue with Justin Fields is when you look at his Dynasty ADP, and he's going before quality veteran quarterbacks where age shouldn't be a factor, guys like Matthew Stafford and Russell Wilson. But because we're playing in a flock locals Dynasty league, I mean, here it's going to be a little bit different. Justin Fields falls to the 311. And if you're looking at the quarterbacks that are left available, Jayan is the one who wanted to make this pick, but honestly, I think I have to stand by it. I think I have to say it was the correct selection because you're looking at Justin Fields, the rookie pick 101 and the rookie pick 102, I believe, already off the board. And we either have the decision to go Justin Fields, Cam Akers, or T. Higgins. Those were the 3 big names that I was considering. And I asked Jan, he wanted Justin Fields, and it makes sense why. Because if you're looking at the fall off from Cam Akers, who's the next best running back? The next best running back, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Travis Etienne, they're all in the same tier. If you're looking at the fall off from T. Higgins, it's Deontay Johnson, Stephon Diggs. They're all in the same tier as well. But once you get past that Justin Fields selection, all of a sudden you're looking at Tua Tagovailoa as the next quarterback selected. After that, Rodgers, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson. So y'all know I'm not a big fan of Justin Fields, but sometimes you have to look at the tiers. We go Justin Fields with the following selection at the 402. Just end up going with T. Higgins. Not too much to discuss here with T. Higgins, a wide receiver that's, I believe, going to be 23 years old and just posted a high-end wide receiver 2 season on a points per game basis and one of the most dynamic offenses going forward. Completely fine with that selection, especially because you have to start 3 wide receivers in this format. Really wanted to build on that wide receiver depth. And then going down at the 511, I know a lot of people are probably going to be a little bit confused, but remember, we traded up from the 511 to the 507. And no, we did not take a kicker here. Now, we've done this before in our startup drafts, but for these startup drafts, instead of drafting actual individual player names, what I prefer to do is have the startup draft with rookie picks in the draft compared to the actual rookie players themselves. That way you're able to have those rookie picks, make trades, then also have the NFL draft and then your rookie draft after. Because, I mean, I talk about this all the time, but you play Dynasty Fantasy Football for fun. And the most fun part of Dynasty Football is going and having your rookie draft. Because in your rookie draft, everybody's being able to be active and make decisions. And on top of this, probably more importantly, that's when you're going to see the majority of your trades go down every dynasty offseason. So instead of drafting those individual rookies, picks are available in the player pool. And if we're going through and looking at what picks are available, it's the 104 is the highest available rookie pick. And we are on the clock, and our options are the 104, Mac Jones, Calvin Ridley, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery. Those are roughly the best available options at every position. And trust me, Jayan and I, this was before Calvin Ridley got suspended. We wanted Calvin Ridley. I mean, I knew Jayan would have wanted to pick Ridley, and I had to get out there with the argument right away saying, well, you know what? If we take the 104 here, we are going to have such an insulated asset that really its value can't go down from here. And if we want Calvin Ridley later on, we can then trade the pick for Calvin Ridley. But we are going to have that insulated asset. We are going to have flexibility with the trades that we can actually make. I mean, really the only prospects that probably aren't going to be guaranteed to fall to us at the 104 is literally going to be Breece Hall. I mean, there's a chance we get Treylon Burks, Drake London, Malik Willis, Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker. I mean, you can almost see anything there. So might as well take the pick, see what our options are down the line, and then potentially trade it if we need to. So we end up taking the rookie pick 104 over those other options. Thank God we didn't end up drafting Calvin Ridley because, of course, 15 minutes later, he gets suspended for the season. And then we are up again at the 602. And honestly, this is the draft pick that I think makes our second round trade worth it. Because if we revisit that second round trade, essentially we traded out of Najee Harris for Mark Andrews in the tight end premium format. And I will be the first person to say, well, that maybe doesn't sound like a great idea on the surface. If we look at the middle rounds and where these tight ends were being drafted and where we just got our, I believe, first running back off the board, it makes total sense to make that swap and to get the free pick upgrade in the 5th round. Because we end up getting Nick Chubb at the 602. Now, y'all know I've never been a fan of Nick Chubb. Last offseason, I mean, right alongside Justin Fields, a player that I was talking about being overvalued in every single video, and every single time people told me, Mason, enough, shut up, and I understand, was Nick Chubb. Because I've always said it, Nick Chubb is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, but at the end of the day, he's in a committee. Nick Chubb is the most talented committee running back in the NFL. I've said that forever, and it still holds true today. But if we're looking at the value that Nick Chubb was going at in Dynasty startups last year compared to this offseason, he used to be a second-round Dynasty startup pick. Nothing has changed at all. Literally nothing. People just kind of realize, oh, now he's in a committee. But still, if you're getting him as that low-end running back 2 in Dynasty, sign me up for this price point. Drafted in 2018. Yes, he stayed all 4 years in Georgia because of the knee injury, but still, this is a running back that's young enough to be productive for a few more seasons, has an elite offensive line in front of him, and really, the quarterback play can't get worse from last year. So if we compare what our selections would have been if we waited on tight end instead of going and taking Mark Andrews in the middle of the 2nd round, we could have gone with Najee Harris at the 202, and then in the 6th round, instead of taking Nick Chubb, I mean, Dallas Goedert goes to the 608. We could have gone Dallas Goedert there. We could have gone Noah Fant. We could have gone Pat Freiermuth, who were off the board by the time we got back to our 7th round selection. So if I ask you, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the combination of Nick Chubb and Mark Andrews, or do you prefer the combination of Najee Harris and Dallas Goedert in a tight end premium format? And honestly, I think that we worked that Nick Chubb pick perfectly. I mean, in other scenarios, no, we don't get that value falling to us, but in this one, it did, so I'm happy with it. And now, going with our next selection, very similar to what we were talking about previously with those rookie picks being so insulated, we end up going back-to-back rookie picks here at the 7-8 turn. Let me discuss exactly why, and also let me count out, how many rookie picks were off the board. I believe we took the 104, 105, 106. Yeah, so this should be the 107, maybe it's the 108. But anyway, we go the 107 and the 108 at the 7-11 and the 802. And essentially, you're looking at those rookie picks compared to a couple other veterans on the board. Now, of course, if we had this draft, after Russell Wilson was traded, maybe it would have been a little bit of a different story. Maybe we consider taking someone like Jerry Jeudy here. But at the time, when you're looking at the best players available being Aaron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, at that rookie pick 107, let's think about what's going to be available in your actual rookie draft. obviously Breece Hall will be off the board. You will also have no Treylon Burks, no Drake London, no Garrett Wilson. I think that's all guaranteed. Most likely not going to have Malik Willis as well. But outside of that, there's a realistic chance you have almost anybody else falling to you with that selection. Keep in mind, we're only 2 picks away, and we still have Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, Kenny Pickett, and God, what's the other quarterback name that I'm blanking out on from Ole Miss? Matt Corral. So there are more than enough options to fall to us with this selection if we were to want to stay here. But at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, there's a long time before the season actually starts. Would it be better to take these picks now and have the flexibility with our roster to be able to go and trade these picks for whatever we may want? That's what I advocated for. I advocated for taking the 107, the 108 ahead of guys like Derek Carr, Aaron Jones, and Ezekiel Elliott. But I'd love to know your opinion on this. I understand this is one of the worst rookie classes we have seen in a very long time. But what I can say with certainty is this is the cheapest I have ever seen rookie picks. Last year, I know it was a much better class, but go offer Derek Carr for the 107, see what happens. Go offer Derek Carr for the 108. I know it's a different class, but still. And then the 911, we actually got auto-drafted with this pick. It was an 8-hour clock, but I passed out at about 10 p.m. and woke up, and we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And honestly, I don't even want to say, oh, boo-hoo, we got auto-drafted. If I was to actually make a selection here, and Jayan agreed with me, Jayan actually loved that we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that this is probably the right call. I am of the opinion that the Kansas City Chiefs, they can definitely bring in a depth running back. They are probably going to be bringing in a secondary guy, whether they re-sign Jerick McKinnon, they go out and get someone like Ronald Jones. Right now, the depth chart behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just completely empty. But given the first-round draft capital they invested into him in that 2020 draft class, it's really hard to imagine that they decide to go out there and all of a sudden pay Leonard Fournette $8 million. I don't even think that's possible for this roster. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is essentially guaranteed at the minimum to be in a committee this upcoming season in this Kansas City Chiefs offense. He's 23 years old. If we're looking at the other players he's going around, he goes right before Juju Smith-Schuster, Gabriel Davis, Tyler Lockett. He goes after a second-round rookie pick, so you're essentially taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire, at a value of that second-round rookie pick. So I'm honestly fine with it, especially if you were looking at our roster. And of course, the last thing I ever want to talk about at this point of the season, when it's March 8th, when we're making this selection, is going to be team need, because we'll have months on months on months where we can make a potential trade. But we do need a second running back, so we end up going Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And then after this, we get Tyler Lockett at the 10:02, and Jayan was out here begging for Allen Robinson, sending me PFF grades of Allen Robinson as if that matters whatsoever. But I was stubborn. I was saying, no, I don't want Allen Robinson. Tyler Lockett, clear selection. Look at Tyler Lockett, top 24 wide receiver, points per game, 3 seasons in a row. What are we discussing here? Then Jayan finally gives in, selects Tyler Lockett, and maybe 5 minutes later, maybe 3 minutes later, 4 minutes later, literally minutes later after we made this selection, Russell Wilson traded to the Denver Broncos. So of course, if we could have this pick back, we would. If we could have that pick back, we probably would have gone someone like Gallup, Sutton, Allen Robinson, really anybody outside of Tyler Lockett. My pick probably would have been Miles Sanders, but it is what it is. Sometimes, I don't want to say you get screwed, but it's Dynasty Fantasy Football. Of course, there's going to be randomness in it. Now, our next pick at the 111, don't need to discuss this too much. This is a league where you start 3 wide receivers and you have a bunch of flex spots as well. So definitely wide receiver depth is highly valuable. We end up going Robert Woods. Jayan was actually advocating for Robert Woods at the 10:02, and I simply said, look at the ADP list. There's a decent chance Robert Woods made it to us in the 11th round, which is exactly what happened. So I don't really feel the need to justify that selection at all. I think it's completely fine. And then we actually ended up getting a 12:02 pick underway, but I was asleep yet again for this one. Jayan went rogue on me. He ends up going Rashad Penny. If it was up to me. I think the clear selections go with the starting quarterback, someone like Baker Mayfield, someone like Carson Wentz, especially with Russell Wilson traded outside of Seattle. But that's my fault for going to sleep. That's 100% on me. I had no say in that trade. If you pull up my running back rankings right now, we have Rashad Penny behind guys like Kareem Hunt, but it is what it is. And of course, thank y'all so much for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel. Really hope y'all enjoyed the startup draft. And as I said, the link to view the entire startup draft screenshot will be posted over there on Locals, completely free for anybody who wants to go check it out. You can find that link in the description of the video. Find it in the comment section. By the time we have this video out there, I'd imagine this entire draft is done. But thank you. Hope you have a great day, and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.